We had to listen to the Marshall Kilburn 2. I wasn't that impressed. I didn't like it till I hit maximum volume. We've had to listen to the Marshall Stockwell 2. I did like it. I liked it at most volumes, except maximum volume, because it doesn't go that loud. These are two very different speakers from the same company, because it's wider, it's thicker, and I didn't like it and I liked it. So that makes them very, very different. If you look at the specs, how different are they? Well, they're not different in that they're both made in China. They're both made under license. They call themselves Marshall, but they're really nothing to do with Marshall other than sound industries pay a license fee to Marshall to use their name, and they're named after places in London. Stockwell, South London, Kilburn, just north of Hyde Park, if you know Hyde Park in London. It's going to cost you about £169 for the Stockwell 2, and if you find it on an Amazon Prime deal, it's going to cost you about £220. So it's about £50 more for the Kilburn 2. It looks a lot bigger. It is a lot bigger. 1.3 kilos, 1.4 kilos really for the Stockwell 2, 2.5 kilos. It's a lot bigger on the Kilburn 2. But here's the thing, and this may shock you to your socks. They both have aptX. And I know, no, my Stockwell doesn't have aptX. I know, there's people telling me, well, I've got SBC on my Android device for the Stockwell 2. If you go to the specs, the official specs, it says SBC. I can tell you on my a Bluetooth scanner, it says aptX supported. And if I go into my developer settings, it says aptX streaming. It's saying it is aptX. And I'm getting aptX on the Stockwell 2. So maybe they've changed it down the line, or I've got a magic Stockwell 2. But for all the evidence I can find, I do have aptX on my Stockwell 2, and it is streaming in aptX. You do have USB-C, woo, yeah, brilliant, on the Stockwell 2, but you've got to use a mains lead on the Kilburn. That might be awkward to you. And not only is it a USB-C, it's a two-way. You can use this as a power bank. It's 20 watts rated on the Marshall Stockwell 2 versus 36 watt, nearly twice the power on paper for the Marshall Kilburn 2. We said it's USB-C, and we're stuck at 12 volts, 3 amps. I say stuck, that's actually fast charging. That's pretty good. That is 36 watts. That is 36 watts via USB-C, and we're getting 36 watts, but we're having to use mains lead, so that they can do fast charging. They can do 36 watts via USB-C. But you won't get that on the Kilburn 2. That's a bit of a downer. It's only IPX2 on the Kilburn 2. So that's, not only you've got to be careful how you splash it, you've got to be careful at the angle you splash it. 15 degrees is the rated for the Kilburn 2 IPX4. So not a lot in it, really. In real terms, you can't drop them in water, and you've got to be careful about getting too much. You get a little bit of water on them, and you've got to be careful of the angles. The driver configuration is quite different because we've got two 50mm full range drivers, front and rear, on the Stockwell 2, and they are slightly offset enough that you get a sense of left and right separation. And you've got a 76mm woofer and a passive radiator on the back. Whereas we've got actual tweeters on the Kilburn 2, and they are 20mm front and back. But here's the thing. The right tweeter is the left channel, and the left tweeter is the right channel. That's really weird. That makes no sense in real life. We've got a bigger woofer. It's a 10cm woofer as opposed to a 7.6cm woofer on the Stockwell 2. And we don't have a passive radiator on the back. We have a port, and of course ports, passive radiators, pretty much interchangeable. Both very good for latency. 33 milliseconds I've tested, 50 milliseconds I've tested. YouTube latency, my cutoff point, anything below 80 milliseconds, you're unlikely to notice in real life. Just bear in mind, testing a Bluetooth latency is highly device and scenario specific. So you may think separate tweeters on Stockwell. They're not. They are full range drivers. Well, what's the advantage and disadvantage of full range drivers? Well, You don't have to mess about with a crossover. We're working to budget with all these speakers. It's it's not the easiest thing in the world to get a decent crossover. And if you don't have a decent crossover, you're going to hear, if your ears are adjusted and you're a trained listener, or you've listened to lots of speakers, a poor crossover, you will hear something weird in the frequency response, in the sound. But if you're just listening to music and you've not got a handle on lots of speakers, you probably won't notice any difference at all. I already mentioned in my original Kilburn 2 review and overview, that upper bass is so overblown for me personally. And there'll be people who are saying, oh, give me more upper bass. It's not enough upper bass. And because we all have different tastes. Now, I will say most people have different tastes once you get below 100 hertz for bass. Most of us can agree above 100 hertz. If it's a big upper bass peak at 150 hertz, most of us can agree. But there'll still be people, especially when you listen outside, that say, oh, that's 150 hertz. That's brilliant. And that's like my JBL Extreme 1. I love that. And outside, I can really hear the bass. Well, that's because music's all about taste, and I can only give you my personal opinion. For me, it was personally overblown. And that's why in these comparisons, till I get to maximum volume, I'm going to have bass not at default, but at 4. So 5 is default up there. And 4 is just a little bit down. So I'm just taming the upper bass a little bit. I think I'm being friendly to the speaker. But I have to admit, hands up, if you bring down the upper bass, you're also bringing down the deeper bass. We'd like granular, well, a bit more granular control, because the treble and the bass seem to hinge around at 1 kilohertz. So I start messing with treble, everything above 1 kilohertz is going up or down. And the same with the bass. Everything below 1 kilohertz seems to be affected. Not what we really want from an EQ. But what we really want to know is, come on out. I know they look very different. And you've given already a different opinion on both these speakers, because I gave a kind of a thumbs down to the Kilburn 2 and a kind of a thumbs up. Well, big thumbs up, actually. This is one of my go-to speakers. But in the real world, when you hear one against the other, they start at lowish volumes, around 50%. Go. % volume. That's moderate listening volumes, and that's a big speaker. That's a little speaker. Can only be one winner here. Oh, hang on a second. For my money, and weirdly, you can not only hear, but you can measure the Stockwell 2 can actually go lower. Yes, the Kilburn 2 does. It sounds fuller, but that's because of the upper bass peak. It also sounds a bit off, but you're getting more fizz, more sense of a stereo, more. I think there's more immersion with the Stockwell 2. And yes, it does go deeper at 50% volume. Not a little bit, it's a lot. 7 decibels at 50 hertz. And there's the thing, 50 hertz is completely missing on the Kilburn 2. And that's why the Marshall Stockwell 2 can really dominate at that frequency. Now, if you go lower, then it comes back in favour of the Kilburn 2, but it's going to be quite rolled off, you're not going to hear it. So the mid to deeper bass that you will hear it favours the Stockwell 2. Very weird tuning on the Kilburn 2, and for my money, which I'm going to listen at 50%, I'm going to adjust them to my ears at that volume. Which one I'm going to pick up? I'm going to pick up the Stockwell 2. And I have to say, listening to these two speakers, I can describe them as being different, as in going to the pub. If I go to the pub with the Kilburn 2, it's going to stand at the bar, it's going to throw its pint at me, it's going to ask me for a fight. Go with the Stockwell 2. Let's sit down, let's chill out, let's talk about old times. This is a relaxing speaker. That's up front, in my face, and it's, come on, listen to me. It's too up front, but your taste may prefer that. So I'm describing it in that way because one's an aggressive upfront speaker and the other one is a relaxing, laid-back speaker. Very, very different in the real world when you listen to them. And I also have to say, it does sound mono-ish to me, the Kilburn 2, despite what they will claim for their processing. And the fact that the rear tweeter is firing backwards, it's quite a thick speaker. You're not getting a sense. We already know highs are very directional. It's not a shocker, is it, in the real world, that if you've got a tweeter on the back and it's firing backwards, I'm not going to get a sense of that. Now, that would be fine if they were doing really, really, really clever things and summing left and right to each other to create some sort of pseudo surround. I'm not getting that. I'm hearing left, that's on the right channel fully at the back and the left channel fully at the front. I'm not hearing that it's summed in any way to give you a sense of both of them. Gonna have to go up in volumes to see if there's more of an even match now. But here, there is a big difference in the volumes on these two speakers. I called it my 50% test, but we were already at 65% on the Stockwell 2 and 40% on the Kilburn 2. When I called my 75% test, it's actually 60% on the Kilburn 2. It's now 90%. So here's the biggest difference already between the speakers, is how loud they would go. So we're now at 90%. We don't really expect that much on the Stockwell 2. And we're at a sweet spot, around 60% on the Kilburn 2.
About it scares me. Can't get these voices out of my head. I've got monsters under my bed. I don't think I'm alright. My friends tell me that I'll be fine, but I can't get these voices out of my head. I've got monsters under my bed. I don't think I'm alright. My friends tell me that I'll be fine.
Even though we're well past what we would call the sweet spot for the Stockwell 2, we're at 90%. I still prefer it. 60%, it's still going deeper. And again, why is it going deeper? When I say in what we can actually hear, because it's missing. 50 hertz is missing totally on the Kilburn 2. It does go deep, but that mid to upper lower bass is completely AWOL. I would say neither of them are the best listen at these volumes, in my opinion. You obviously could well have a different opinion, and there's going to be a lot of fanboys already got the Kilburn 2 and say, you don't know what you're talking about, it's fantastic. I'm just giving you my opinion. My opinion is my opinion. We're talking about music, and of course, everybody's going to have a different taste. However, some things you can measure. There is part of that bass that is completely missing. No matter what your taste, And whether you want an accurate speaker or not, that bass is weird. We're at 90%. We don't expect the bass to be doing much. We're still 6 decibels up on the Stockwell 2 compared to the Kilburn 2. But it may be a bit shrieky because the highs are a lot stronger on the Stockwell 2. In terms of overall bass, yes, Kilburn 2 takes it, but that's because it's got the massive, huge, even with bass adjusted down a little bit to 4, the upper bass is massive. What's going to happen then? Maximum volume, the test.
I never used to lose control. I also never had somebody like you. It's been a minute since I've been home. Let's get lost in the night. Yeah, I can feel it in my bones. I don't wanna stop. You've got the recipe. I know it's gonna take us higher. Loosen up, celebrate. Get up, stand up on your feet. Let's get big. Let's get big, big, big. Let's get big, big, big. Let's get big until I forget my name. Let's get big, big, big. Let's get big. Let's get big, big, big. Let's get if you wanna dance, I can tell you about this place I know, somewhere hidden in the stars. Oh, don't waste your energy, even though at 23 you gotta give your all tonight. Yeah, I can feel it in my bones, I don't wanna stop. You've got the recipe, I know it's gonna take us higher. Loosen up, celebrate. Get up, stand up on your feet. Let's get big until I forget my name. Let's get big. Jump right, slide to the left. Let's get big. Live it up while you can. Let's do it again. Let's get big. If you wanna dance, I can tell you about this place I know, somewhere hidden in the stars. Forget my name, let's get big. Let's get big. Let's get big. Let's get big.
So finally, this is where the Kilburn 2 excels. It holds its bass at maximum volume. So as you near maximum volume, as you get past the 80% where a lot of these speakers are limiting their bass, the Kilburn 2 finally shows the potential that is really there with, I think, better tuning. But the Stockwell 2 has no chance in terms of volume against the Kilburn 2. Once the Kilburn 2 is pushing past 60%, and that's 90% on the Stockwell 2, we're 8 decibels louder on the Kilburn 2, 6 decibels in terms of peak, 9 decibels in total bass, and now at 50 hertz, we're 10 decibels up on the Kilburn 2. Finally a win for the Marshall Kilburn 2. And there you go. Why would you get the Kilburn 2 over the Stockwell 2? A, because you prefer a more aggressive sound, and 2, because you just play it a lot louder. Yeah, it's going to go a lot louder. And whereas it tails off as you got the volume scale on the Stockwell 2, not only does it not go as loud anyway, but it becomes less of itself. The frequency response becomes poorer. To me, it's getting less bass, but it's the opposite on the Kilburn 2. As you go past 80%, comes into its own. The upper bass is tamed a little bit. The balance is actually pretty decent, and it's retaining huge amounts of bass. It's a great listen. So yeah, if I was playing really, really, really loud, if my neighbours were really annoying me, and I'm going to play that at maximum volume, and I don't care how long they bang on my wall for, I'm going to play the Kilburn 2. One of the best listens for me of the speakers I personally have at maximum volume. That's the only time I'm going to pick it up. It's going to go a lot louder than the Stockwell 2. I'm going to pick up the Stockwell 2 if I want a relaxing listen, playing at lower volumes. And I want a more immersive experience because I don't find that very immersive. I find that very mono, but that's very fizzy and immersive. And the so-called Blumline processing. Someone explain to me, what is Blumline stereo processing? I mean, apart from clearly the obvious reverb, Blumline processing is something used when we talk about Blumline processing, that means more as a recording technique than in a reproducing stereo technique. They're really hanging on to the fact that originally Blumline was about how to recreate a stereo. So that was going back 100 years. Marketing. Look, we already know this is not strictly what it appears at first glance. It's not a Marshall speaker. This is a sound industry speaker paying money to Marshall so that they can use the name. And clearly they say, well, we'll use your name and we'll make you look like your amplifiers. And then people will love it because of that. Still made in China by a company based in Sweden. But Marshall, it is a British company, but they don't make their own speakers. That's made by someone else. So the takeaway from this particular video is maximum volume. You want to go really, really loud. Yeah, if you're going to looking at these two speakers, that's your man. But if you're not playing at maximum volume, if you're playing at moderate volumes, in my opinion, Stockwell 2 is where it's at. I hope you got something out of this particular video, and I thank you, of course, for watching.
I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Ain't no project wife, got my logic right, cause I'm not your type. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Sorry, ma, I ain't get it right. I'ma just live my life. I ain't about that. I ain't about that life.